for schedules and information.
Hello there. Welcome back to the booth here at the Magic Online Community Cup. We're in Renton, Washington at headquarters of Wizards of the Coast. Brian, David, Marshall, Sutcliffe here with you. I want to remind you before we get into this, BDM, there are prizes for you. If you log into Magic Online while we're broadcasting here at the Community Cup and the community team wins, you will receive automatically into your account some unhinged basic lands, which are beautiful, as well as a promo Thalia. Yeah, you got to log in, yeah. As well as a promo Thalia. Now, if the community team fails to win, the Wizards of the Coast team wins, you will also receive a prize, a Drown in Sorrow, which is kind of a dagger, right? Yeah, but all you have to do is log in, and you'll be eligible for whatever prizes you may receive. And, of course, probably gives you the rooting interest of rooting for the community team unless you're just insidious and evil and don't like value.
And it was our feeling that the community team had maybe an edge going into judging for this.
I think they do, which, by the way, is where we're heading here. We're heading down shortly to the Ironroot Chef Challenge judging, and BDM, the judging is the important part.
Yeah, 45 points on the line for any team here, although it's not a zero-sum game, right? Like they could both end up with 45 points.
Sure.
They could both end up with 0 points.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that the community team prepared creative briefs.
Creative briefs?
Creative briefs.
What is this?
Sultai Avarice by Ryan Spain and Mike Turian.
What?
The overall philosophy of Sultai Avarice. The Sultai are insanely greedy, led by a dragon, the greediest of creatures. The Sultai want wealth to have it regardless of utility. Well, wealth for wealth's sake is the Sultai way. Everything.
This is double-sided?
This is a 2. Yeah, this is. So, I don't know that they did this for all the decks.
They've bullet-pointed every card in the deck. Here, I'm going to take an example from you here. Guild, the greediest removal spell of them all. All right, you know what? We saw Whirler Rogue in play.
Yeah, what's the justification for Whirler Rogue?
Let's find out. It says, another rogue helping the thieving rogues make it through. And note that she is an artificer. While not helping steal them, she makes more amulets for the Sultai. So
this
their
is
idea,
all about the
amulet
acquisition
thing.
of amulets.
Yeah, they made the deck about acquiring amulets. They said, okay, here's our Sultai people, and all they want to do is get amulets, and they're greedy. They're greedy for greed's sake. They don't care. And every deck, I mean, every card in the deck, they seem to have it figured out. You're shifting loyalties. One of the Sultai tactics for amulet acquisition is the old switcheroo. That's what it says.
So this is from the Appetizer round of Ironroot Chef. It was standard. Both teams had to build with Avarice Amulet. So.
Yes, that's right. All right, so Tim Willoughby is down, where we have our judges ready to give out points for the Ironroot Chef Challenge. Let's head down there right now.
10 seconds. Go 10.
The time for games is over. Community team, Wizards team, meet your judges. We've got Kimberly, Graham, and the Wizard, a world builder, a laughter crafter, and a man that does basically everything. They're hungry to find out about your dishes. So first up, we got the Wizards team presenting their appetizer. Ryan Spain, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, judges. So our challenge was to build a deck in the standard format with 4 copies of Avarice Amulet. We went, who represents Avarice more than the Sultai? So our goal was to build a Sultai Avarice deck based on every card looking to find, keep, steal, and hold on to all of the Avarice Amulets in the game, especially knowing this was a battle we were going into, knowing that there were going to be 4 Avarice Amulets in the other deck. So we like to use a lot of 1s and 2s to get as much flavor into the deck as we can. We use Traveler's Amulet, of course, which has, in the Innistrad version, the wonderful flavor text, "The rider set off into the eerie mist, swallowed in armor and laden with amulets." There's the goal of our deck right there. The Sultai will start with bribes, with the Briber's Purse. They'll do anything, but they will, take the easy path first and see if that works out. If the bribing doesn't work out, send an emissary to see if diplomacy can acquire some amulets. When the diplomacy doesn't work, you turn to the thieves. The Jessian and daring thieves are rogues who put on their rogues' gloves and look to just actually steal amulets from the opponents. Finally, if the thieving doesn't work, we turn to murder. Yes. And so we use murderous cut to represent the tactic of murder. And the origin of the amulet, I don't know if everybody knows, but it's actually a penny arcade design based on the ongoing theme, the recurring gag in their strip where the two main characters are willing to murder each other for a coveted Pac-Man watch. So murder was essential for me in the use of the removal spell. I wouldn't do something like 4 copies of some unconnected powerful removal spell. And and also it has the Sultai mechanic of delve, so it's a very Sultai card. If you're going to send in murderers, send in assassins. So we sent in the Sly Blade to assassinate for the amulet. And we have a Disciple of Deceit, who when she untaps can get rid of something she doesn't want and find a precious amulet from the deck. Glint keeps the amulet safe on your side, and we know what's glinting in that card. The Quickling is a rogue that can prevent the stealing of your own amulet by saving a creature that is wearing the amulet that is about to die. Sultai Charm. Sultai Charm is the amulet itself. The Sultai Charms are the amulet, and nothing is more Sultai than cards with Sultai right in the name. The Custodian of the Trove is a defender of the amulets, and his flavor text, Silumgar delights in repurposing the treasures of other clans to serve his own ravenous greed. So apparently we're stealing the amulets and making guardians out of opponents' amulets. Guild is the greediest removal spell of them all. We have King Makar, who is the greediest of legends. Everything he's touched turns to gold. Perplexing Chimera has one job in this deck, and that is to be on guard for an opponent trying to cast an amulet, because then we can trade the Chimera for that amulet. The Liliana Vess is the greediest of planeswalkers, but her love of power is not the only reason there. Her -2 ability goes and finds amulets. So her demonic tutoring ability is solely to go get more amulets from your deck. The Soothsayer both seeks out more amulets from your deck and has the flavor text, the Naga of the Sultai Brood made deals with dark forces to keep their power, so they will do whatever they can to keep their amulets. Shifting Loyalties, a little trickery to trade maybe a briber's purse we don't need anymore for your lovely, lovely amulet. And finally, with Silumgar as the head of the clan, he symbolizes the greed incarnate and villainous wealth. What could be more encompassing than just going right into your opponent's deck and getting the amulets right out of them? The mana base has Opulent Palaces and Temple of Deceit. And, in the sideboard, I wanted to call out the... they never make the main deck, but as a nod to the Penny Arcade origins, we included Sentinel of the Eternal Watch and Eagle of the Watch.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan. I believe the judges now have a few things they would like to say about these decks, which they've devoured.
One quick word, and then I'll pass it. First of all, I'd like to say that this has been by far the best flavor of any Community Cup so far. So congratulations to all of you for making wonderfully flavorful decks. That said, we grade on a curve, so the standard is now higher than it is in years past. So that doesn't necessarily mean you guys are all getting A+ here. So that being said, I'll hand it off to Graham, who will talk a little bit about his impression of the WotC's Avarice deck.
Very briefly, a lot of what you touched on were things that I very much enjoyed about the deck. We were questioning the murderous cut a little bit, but I appreciate that you threw it back to the origins of the Pac-Man watch. My only questioning when reading down the deck list was the Zathrid Slyblade and Glint, the hexproof, basically. Just sort of, you know that your opponent's going to want to kill your creatures to take the amulets, so we'll just make them not kill our creatures rather than killing theirs back.
But to protect it with a card.
No, we have the microphone.
Kimberly, what were your impressions?
Thank you. I was very impressed with the flavor on this deck. I was actually most impressed by the fact that, yes, you were looking for ways to protect your amulet, but you did not just take the easy way out. You went deep, you found the cards that were both flavorful and did what you needed. One thing that hit me a little weird was Shifting Loyalties, a Jeskai card. I know there's a little bit of flavor there. It felt like a bit of a stretch to me. Overall, though, this Appetizer to me was like really good scallops with a little bit of cilantro sauce. It left my mouth watering for more, and I want to see what your team delivers for the main course. I was impressed.
Okay. So, yes, very good. I agree that this deck is loaded with flavor. I love all the references to greed, especially flavor text references. You mentioned Custodian of the Trove. There's other great examples, Sultai Emissary, Rogue's Gloves. This went pretty deep in terms of finding little gems of flavor text that served your main theme. Well done there. However, I'm with you for diplomacy and thievery, right, to get what you want. I jump off at murder. We did not like removal spells in this deck. It seemed like an obvious rules text combo, and therefore was held to a higher standard of flavor. Relating it to the Penny Arcades combo comic strip, I mean, okay. It's probably a few too many degrees from Kevin Bacon for my taste. Well, and yes, shifting loyalties, perplexing chimera. These also seemed like rules text combos more so than flavor combos. I don't really see where on the perplexing chimera the avarice seems neither perplexing or chimera related. Didn't exactly see that there. So there were some misses for me in this deck. So we will give you our scores now. Graham.
I thought it was pretty solid, but didn't super shine for me. I gave it a 3.
I was very impressed. I gave it a 4.
I'm with Graham. Had a lot of strengths, but some weaknesses that I didn't like. I gave it a 3. All right, so that is a total score of 8 for the Avarice Amulet deck from Wizards of the Coast.
Total score of 10.
Right. I'll leave the math to the to the smart people. Thank you. You can grade me on my math later.
So 10 points for the Wizards team there. We now get a chance to see what the community team has to say about their deck. Megan Wolf, take the floor.
Thank you. Avarice means greed, and greed, for lack of a better word, is good. It motivates us, it drives us. What would we accomplish without our desire for more? More wealth, more power, more love? But greed can also be our downfall. Allow me to tell you the themes of today's stories, to lay down the bed of greens on which we will serve our appetizer. Today we bring you the stories of tormented heroes, of once good people brought low by their darkest desires, by gluttony and by depravity, led astray by bad advisors to make deals whose consequences are darker and more dire than they could ever have dreamed. Today we learn that everyone has a price they will pay for their wants, but that price is monstrous. But enough of the general. Let's move on to the stories of our heroes, or more aptly, our anti-heroes. We begin with Liliana, a healer led by her desire for greater magic and power to make a horrific pact with Kothafed. Will Liliana's consuming desire for more lead her to a hero's downfall? She is a creature and a planeswalker after all. Next, we have King Makar, driven by his desire for gold, who ultimately finds the world around him gilded. Finally, we have Tassiger, driven by power and wealth, which ultimately make him neurotic and cause him to be led astray by his vizier. He's defeated by Silumgar in a palace siege, and he himself becomes a necklace, a token of avarice. We'd like to turn your attention to the lands. We have Opulent Palace to highlight both wealth and decay. If you check out the art on our basic lands, you'll find that they have similar artistic themes. Polluted Delta illustrates how avarice pollutes the rest of our lives. Temple of Abandon and Deceit, because we pursue our greediest desires, no matter what the cost. Temple of Malice, because pursuit of wealth and power often inspires malice and creates enemies. Bloodstained Mire for destruction and death. And Temple of Malady, because what is greed but a malady of the human condition? In our sideboard, we have cards echoing the ideas of defeat, of losing your soul in pursuit of wealth and power, of being tormented by our eternal thirst for more. Our main deck has 4 colors and 64 cards, because we ourselves are not immune to avarice. When we tell stories about greed, we are really telling stories about the darkest sides of ourselves. Our sideboard has 13 cards to acknowledge that these characters are motivated by universal impulses and desires we all feel, and they were perhaps just unlucky and that they had the means of realizing these desires at their fingertips. Thanks.
That was the best grade 11 book report I have ever heard. That was a fantastic presentation. Sorry, Wizard, please.
Yes. Do you have anything about the deck, or
Yeah.
you just? I'm almost
We're going down the line. So, it's interesting that both teams ended up. I mean, there was 4 colors in the community deck. It was interesting that they ended up in practically the same colors. I was expecting many more sort of something with a lot more sort of active treason effects. Stealing creatures, lots of things like that. Not to say that I'm disappointed. I thought that that's what we would end up seeing, but we didn't, and I thought that was really interesting. Curious, you mentioned the lands, because that was one of the things that I took a little bit of issue with, because Deceit and Malice, sweet, I'm with you. Avarice Amulet, I'm on board. But you also have Temple of Malady, which you defended, and Temple of Abandon, which I assume was in there for mana fixing purposes. So I was only sort of halfers on your mana base, to be fair. Though again, everyone who went through and picked the correct basic land art, that was nice. I appreciated the curation of basics.
Thank you. So I will say what you did very well was, in my opinion, layer the different flavors of greed for me. We get the greed for souls with Soul Hoarder, the greed for power with the Priest of the Bloodright, the greed for magic with the Prize Unicorn. However, with that base, I feel like you blundered a bit on the seasoning. We need spice in this deck. I felt you went a bit the wrong way. For example, Bathe in Dragonfire. That's a Tarka, guys. Like, I wanted to see Silumgar here. I did. Flavor-wise, that wasn't a hit for me. Neither was Hero's Downfall. And Perilous Vault, the flavor text talks about Ugin, who he is studying the Eldrazi here. It's, in my mind, not greed what he's doing. It's a pursuit of knowledge, something more. So those cards in particular didn't quite hit for me. One interesting thing I'd like to point out was I saw 2 Lilianas. The Liliana used by the Wizards team felt greedy to me, especially the ultimate. The Liliana that your team chose to use, Heretical Healer, she does something extremely not greedy in her story. She tries to save her brother's life. And to me, that was a really big flavor miss. So while I appreciated a lot of the layering you did, I felt like there were a few seasoning things that didn't quite hit right for me. But overall, good job, and thank you very much.
And just to piggyback on what Kimberly said, yeah, Bathe in Dragonfire is from Atarka's clan. We know why it was in the deck. It's a removal spell. It's very good in match play, especially with Avarice Amulet, as it allows you to recoup the amulet that you just lost. Hero's Downfall, there's no flavor connection here. That's a 4 of in the deck? It's a tournament card. It's exactly the warning I gave you about spells like Swords to Plowshares and whatnot. So that said, there were some big misses for me in this deck. However, the highs were very high. Kothafed, Prized Unicorn, Avaricious Dragon, King Makar. These showed flavor in the artwork, in their name, and in the flavor text. The 3 areas of the card that I asked you to focus on the most, and you did that to the fullest. So congratulations there. Tormented Hero, very interesting inclusion. It's very easy to just make it a mono greed deck. But the torment of the hero, I mean, this person it's a blessing and a curse to have this amulet. It's great power, but also a great affliction. And I think Tormented Hero is the perfect person to wear this amulet. So that was something I didn't expect, but was very delighted by. So all said, the flaws in the deck were strong. Megan's very impassioned speech was certainly worth something in my score. I don't know if my judges will change their score for that as well, but very well delivered. And I felt the flavor in your voice and in the spirit of the deck. So let's get to our scores. Graham?
While the Wizards team won that particular match, I felt that flavor-wise the decks were very even, so I actually gave it 3 as well.
For me, this deck wasn't quite as strong as the Wizards deck. I went with a 3.
I originally had this as a 3 for similar reasons. I felt like good hits, some bad misses, but I'm going to bump it up to a 4 for the amazing speech. That I don't know if you guys knew that you could earn points that way, but now you do. So I'm going to give it a 4, and if somebody can do simple arithmetic for me, thank you, Tim. It's 10 again, so I guess we're still tied. All right, now we move on to the main course.
I know the judges are hungry for this one. We're going to start with the Wizards team once again. So, Robert Schuster, explain to us your Ramirez Di Pietro main course.
So there's 2 things you need to know about Ramirez. 1, he lies about his age. 2, one of the best-dressed pirates you're ever going to run into. Ramirez has been around for a while now, and he has collected some amazing artifacts on his journey. Most of them, he's trying to look as good as he possibly can. So we have the Traveler's Cloak in there. We have things you're going to run into on the high seas, like a tidal wave that you may have seen take out an ambitious lighthouse chronologist trying to get in there for value. Oh, we'll move the laptop down here. For value, yes. Yeah, lots of extra turns. Instead of trying to make a deck that we knew would just roll over the other commander deck, what we tried to do is stick on Ramirez's theme and figure out how we could outsmart our opponent and outlast them. It was a really close game, if you were watching, but we weren't able to quite charm our opponent into falling victim of their own magics. You'll also notice that we brought along our friend Drown and Sar to give the community a preview of what is going to happen to them when they take this home. So I hope that scores a point in terms of a shot across the bow, if you will. Ramirez, known for being tricky, also has some deceitful cards, you'll notice, as well as getting contracts that are even written in blood. The one card I did think might be a little bit too clever, but I'm sure you picked it up, Zhao Dun One Eye, has everything he needs to be a pirate. You also notice on our lands, we take a tour of some of the multiverse's finest spots to come into the board. You'll notice that we even visit the exotic island of Whack Whack. While not in the ocean itself, it flies above, and from the art you can tell, damn, they're finely dressed. Ramirez would definitely stop by there and do some shopping while in port. If you go on down to artifacts, you'll notice that Ramirez has been hiding away in his treasure trove, the secrets that have given him long life that allow him to lie about his age. I looked at the art today. It's the same as the first time I saw it in Legends. He has not aged a day. Probably due to the chalice of life and the elixir of vitality he's got stowed in the hole. I think you saw everything you need to know about this deck to know that it is the quintessential Ramirez Di Pietro pirate deck.
So it would have been very easy for this deck to become basically search ocean pirate add all. And maybe aspects of it were. Well, I'm sure the other judges might go into that. But something that I liked was there was at least what I noticed, a small nod to his flamboyance with the inclusion of the jet medallion and the sky diamond, his various jewelry. I appreciated that.
So before I started, I had a question for you on Clever Impersonator. Would you be able to elaborate on why you added that card?
Yes, of course. Who knows what tricks Ramirez gets up to? And what we were really hoping to do was outsmart our opponent with different clever tricks. So with the Clever Impersonator, we were hoping to actually win the game by hitting them with their own commander. However, things didn't work out that way, but we figured it might be a great way for us to get a leg up and show that Ramirez can get the upper hand even when faced with a powerful Sphinx.
Thank you. So,
Do you want to say what your
yes, what I was hoping or thinking maybe. So in Ramirez's history, after plundering and fighting at the high seas, 1,000 years later, a shapeshifter came back and assumed his form. So if you had gone that deep and known about, so in my mind, you.
My sous chef, who was an expert on Ramirez's lore, that was her inclusion. This may have been the reasoning.
I mean, it's a, yep.
Ramirez tells tall tales. Wow, I say that a lot. And how better to tell a tale than to wear a disguise? I mean, like, he wears all these flamboyant clothes. He's got a he wears all these clothes. He's got all this flamboyance. He's clearly got to have some magic to sell the role, sell the part. So he's a clever impersonator.
All right. Well, thank you for that. So, clever impersonator aside, I will say for me, this was almost as perfect as a main course could get. I think you had the meat, the protein right there with my pirates. I saw the pirate ship, the Talus researcher, harbor bandit, all of these things really, I was duly impressed by all of these things. Your choices of land, the sauce on the dish, that was amazing, brilliant. I loved the time that you took to make that sauce perfect. And then the depth of the dish. You didn't stop there. We had my favorite component, the rats, the spiciness, like arr. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the jewels for the flamboyancy, that added that little acidity at the top. If I would change one thing, it would be the merfolk sub-theme. I didn't really see, I understand it ties to the seas and to pirates and that, but to Ramirez himself, I might have liked to see something with tall tales or lies rather than merfolks. But overall, guys, this was a great main course. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with Kimberly, and let's just settle this once and for all. The clever impersonator was accidental genius. I think you stumbled into it. I'm not sure if it'll affect my score, but I agree. The lands in this deck are fabulous. Obviously they're on color. It's a magic deck, but the names of the lands and the artwork are just incredible from a seafaring aspect. Lots of seafaring cards. We knew that was coming. The rats were a nice surprise. I'm just repeating here. Again, the lying about his age, there was just a little bit of it, but I did appreciate Chalice of Life, Elixir of Immortality, Elixir of Vitality. These things all contributed greatly. Lux cannon, nice. Ship's got to have a cannon. I appreciated that. Shao Dun, yes, he has one eye. Rides a horse, horsemanship, little crammed in there. We can't hear you. I have the microphone now. So yes, it was good. It wasn't just a pirate deck. You picked up on the most important part of the card, which is the flavor text, which presents 3 distinct, complex themes, and hit upon it. So yeah, I like it. I buy it. So let's give our grades.
I didn't think you hit upon it enough. I thought it felt too much like a pirate deck. I really liked it. It was a sweet pirate deck, but I felt it was too pirate and not enough Ramirez. I'm sorry. I gave it a 3.
I was blown away. I gave it a 5.
I'm going to go in between here. I thought it was incredibly strong, but there were a couple dinks and misses that I think I couldn't give it a perfect score, so I gave it a 4. And Tim, how many fingers do we hold? You don't have enough fingers, I imagine. 12 points. Thank you. Very, very well done.
We've heard from our Wizard of the Coast team. It's time for the community to strike back. Jimmy Wong, the floor's yours.
Judges, how are we doing today? Good. We think of time as a linear line, something that starts from point A and moves to point B. But imagine if time was not linear. What if time was a little more malleable? Metamai the Ageless, for those in chat, 4UW, 4 blue-white, legendary creature Sphinx. Whenever Metamai the Ageless deals combat damage to a player, take an extra turn after this one. Metamai the Ageless cannot attack during extra turns. Now, Metamai hails from the Theros block. He is truly ageless. He only appears a few times every year during important historical moments for the people of Miletus: religious ceremonies, coronations, the onset of wars. So he's been a part of Miletus' history for many decades, and he seems to possess a very cryptic knowledge of what is going to happen in the future. And his predictions can often be good omens, but they can also be very, very dire. So to Theros and Miletus citizens, he is a very mythical being, but we know him to be a true master of time itself. And now some people say that time is relative, but in Metamai's case, it is literally that. Time functions as a dimension that he can manipulate, move through, and change on the battlefield on a whim. So, cards that demonstrate this. We've seen them played in our pretty epic match, well fought. Time reversal, time stop, sands of time, temporal manipulation, temporal distortion, paradox haze. Now we demonstrate that we have more than just the ability to take extra turns, because I played Commander a lot, and we all know the guys going off taking extra turns, and again we saw in the match there were a lot of extra turns being taken. But Metamai is not just interested in the linear progression of time, right? He wants to play around with the game of Magic itself. He's messing with your untap step. He's changing how many upkeeps you have. He's changing literal rules of the game. He's distorting players' hands, revealing information, and hiding it at opportune moments. So Metamai can see through time itself. Cards like Preordain, Ponder, Tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for today, Telling Time. Mastery is achieved when telling time becomes telling time what to do. Metamai, importantly, has prophecies. He shows up in Miletus not just to hang out, have a drink. He has messages to deliver to the people at historic moments in their history. But again, time to Metamai is not linear. He's not waiting for something to happen and then appearing. He is like Doctor Who. He can choose when he comes, and necessarily the Metamai you see 10 days from now may not be the same Metamai you saw a year ago. They may have come from completely different times. He already has knowledge of the future, and he uses this to deliver his message. So to the people, he speaks in prophecies. To Metamai, his words are simply a truth, but spoken in riddles, because he is a sphinx, and it is up for the people themselves to discover what he is trying to tell them. So he cannot tell them exactly what to do. The choice is in their hands. So cards like Future Sight, Extract, Fate Foretold, Foresee, Wind Time's Watch, and Watch Time Unwind, Mimeofacture, and Dichotomancy, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, are just there to look through an opponent's library, to be able to see and foretell what is going to be coming. Telepathy. And we decided to include the Suspend mechanic because we have cards like Ancestral Vision, Clock Spinning, Lighthouse Chronologist, because Metamai has perfect information at all times. He should know exactly what's in an opponent's hand, what's in their library, what's coming next, what is coming towards him, but he does not want to control it. We're not putting in counter spells here. Metamai isn't here to see what's about to happen and lock down the game. That's not his point. He wants people to interpret his signs, and more importantly, these are very chosen individuals on the plane of the world that are able to receive these messages and translate them to the masses. We have oracles, we have seers, prophets, and they're crucial to Metamai's method. Without these people, Metamai is useless. He cannot simply talk to the people. He has to deliver a message and have it be transferred to the rest. So we have Omen Speaker, we have a Seagate Oracle, we have a Traveling Philosopher, Oracle's Insight, which we saw played on Metamai, and which was very fun. Because he's speaking them to riddles and clues, we have the Dacromystic, we have the Riddle Keeper, we have the Riddle Smith, and Metamai, most importantly, he puts the fate, again, into the player's hands. So he's letting them choose what their fate is going to foretell. And he doesn't take an extra turn to swing, as is denoted in his actual text. He wants to gain more knowledge. He swings in, that's him delivering the message, and on the second turn, it's up for the people to figure it out, discover what lies waiting for them. And our stipulation going into this is that anytime Metamai attacked on the extra turn, that turn was meant for knowledge gain, to give card draw, to give opponents choices, to constantly be forcing the power into the opponent's hands and having them choose what is going to happen to them. So we had cards like Fact or Fiction, the Sphinx of Uthun, Master of Predicaments, Interpret the Signs, Plea for Power. Notably, Plea for Power is a card that once in a two-player game, a vote is made, the second player has complete control over which of the two choices will happen because of the way that the ties work in these cards from Conspiracy. Thran Tome, Zura's Welding, Crystal Shard, and Jace, Architect of Thought, literally only there to fact or fiction and help provide the people with a choice that they make and to decide their own futures. Now, where does this leave us? Metamai is not an angry prophet. He holds no emotions towards conflicts of mankind. And honestly, he's just an overseer. He's an observer through time, much like Tamio is. Someone who is not interested in control necessarily, but rather choice. So how would you interpret the signs? Will it be a catastrophe? Will it be tragic arrogance? Will it be good, Beacon of Immortality, Fact or Fiction, Thran Tome, Crystal Shards, Fight or Flight? Or will it be so drastic that Metamai will become a true lord of time and take over time itself? And we have an infinite combo in there because there's no reason not to have it because Madamai is ageless. He has mastery over time. To not include an infinite turn combo would be against the flavor of the deck. But again, it's only for Madamai to make his choice when it needs to absolutely happen. So Miletus has a choice. Can the guardians of this beautiful city decode the riddles and the clues that Madamai provides? Or will they make wrong choices? Will they anger the gods and will they bring ruination upon themselves? Thank you.
I didn't know we had everyone writing full speeches this year. This is amazing.
That speech was almost as long as the game that y'all played.
So, use just enough time for the game, yeah. So, you picked Madamai. I was a little surprised actually, because in my brief sort of glance over the ingredients after they were revealed, or when we were discussing it beforehand, it was the only one that I wasn't immediately sort of inspired by, and I was like, oh, they picked Madamai? Really? I probably would have picked Ramirez, but here we are. And the extra turns would have been the easiest thing. Just be like, oh, I guess I'll just take an extra turns deck. But as you mentioned, and what I noticed and really enjoyed was the factor fiction effects that offered the illusion of choice to your opponent, and also all the card reveal cards that didn't actually do anything. They're just like, we want this information. We're going to get information because Madamai can see all. I really enjoyed that about it.
Thank you. I was very impressed by the depth that you went into, not only in your explanation, but that I could see in the deck itself. I think you did a great job of hitting on various different aspects of Madamai. I was actually excited that someone picked this card. I like this Sphinx a lot. I like Sphinxes a lot. I like Theros Sphinxes a lot. And I was looking for the feeling of primordial here, enigmatic, and his ability to give predictions. I appreciated the depth you went to, and just as much I appreciated the restraint that you had in going there. Rather than, as you said, you could have taken advantage and done all the countering, you didn't. You kept true to who Madamai is, and that huge points for me in that book. There were two main flavor points that I just didn't quite hit for me. One was telepathy. So yes, Madamai is able to see the future, but he's not traditionally telepathing, and he's not influencing your mind. He's offering you choices and things like that. So that some of the direct telepathy cards didn't quite hit for me. The other thing that didn't quite hit flavorfully was the difference between being a primordial being, an ancient being full of ancient knowledge, and immortality. And I felt like, well, close, and I know we're splitting hairs here. That didn't quite work for me on the same level. Great call out with the flavor text on Swan Song. I'm glad you found that card. That was fantastic. And I also know Jace was the obvious planeswalker, but you included Tamio as well. And to me, she's even a stronger flavor hit than Jace himself. So you guys hit a lot of great, really great choices. And overall, the dish was very strong. Thank you.
For me, this was a home run. So the Wizards deck, I think, was fantastic. Like I said, I'm just to compare, the Wizards deck went all in on these seafaring references, and then there were little dashes of spice in the other realms of Ramirez. With this Madamai deck, it really seemed like you went all the way in all different layers of how you interpreted time and agelessness. It wasn't just extra turns. It went way beyond that. And of course, Jimmy explained that at length in all the different ways that they did hit upon time. So the depth that you went into, the sheer breadth of creativity and the boldness to pick that many different sub-themes of time, I found very, very good. So yeah, for me it was a home run. I could dink you on a couple little things, like Graham mentioned, but like Kimberly mentioned, we're talking splitting hairs between whether he's a primordial being or he's immortal. Splitting hairs to me a little bit. Telepathy being not exactly his specific power. I like the boldness of throwing it in there and kind of putting your own interpretation on Madamai in that way. So, yeah, I love the deck. So, Graham.
As we said before, we're not giving extra bonus points for how the game turned out, but I did want to give special mention to the fact that the game itself almost went to time and was won with extra turns. I just wanted to mention that was sweet, even though I'm not giving extra points for it. I do, however, love the deck hugely, and I gave it a 5.
I also love the deck. I went with a 4.
Yep, so home run for me, so I went 5. Congratulations.
14 points there for the community team. We have just the desserts to come. And Sam Stoddard for the Wizards team, please can you explain your dessert deck, please?
First of all, I want to apologize for the judges. I have no piece of paper to drop in front of you. Instead, I come, as many have before me, in ancient days when a meal was finished, a bard came, or other historian, come, a poet, and tell the story of a story forgotten to the diners so that they could reflect upon the end of their meal about what came before. Much like Homer has, I come with a story of Mirrodin, the fall of Mirrodin. Many years ago, Glissa came, and she saved Mirrodin from Memnarch. But Karn, who had created Mirrodin, brought something with him. Oil, glistening oil. The true nature of the Phyrexians. And that oil spread. And as we come upon our story, we see Glissa, once the hero, now the traitor. The deck is full of cards. In the middle of the war, you see still some blink moth nexus exists, but ink moth nexuses have also taken over. You see the Viridian shamans have become Viridian corruptors. Over and over again, we see this is a world in a state of war, in a state of degradation. It is not yet done, but it is close. The war is at hand, and it is almost lost, and the Phyrexians will win. One day, but not yet. The deck is there to show the oil and to show what the Phyrexians have done as a warning to all, to remind them of what we must be vigilant for. You will also note the deck contains 75 main deck cards. The Phyrexians, when they complete, they do not complete part way. They take it all. The entire deck, sideboard and all, they have converted into their main deck. Also, I don't know if you watch the games play out, but you might notice the Phyrexian cards, little hint there. The glistening oil turned them foil.
I did appreciate the dichotomy, like you say, that you have the blink moth and ink moth. You have many cards through the deck that's sort of the before and after the oil. I did appreciate that. It didn't feel super exciting to me, despite appreciating that. But I will say, since you mentioned it, that fully one of my points was because the whole deck was foil, because I thought that was sweet.
I agree. I appreciated the foil flavor. That was a really nice touch, something I wasn't expecting. And I also liked your 75 card note there. That was very cool. Being on the creative team, how can I not love the fact that you did embrace the creative flavor and double down on that, go all the way. However, that being said, I felt like in some ways you took the easy way out here. And the reason I say that is because this flavor is already known. This is a story. Of course, these cards do go together because the creative made them go together. That's not to say that the deck isn't strong and that it is not flavorful. It's to say that this is a burger and fries. Well, I don't know if that's quite dessert, but go along with me here anyway. And it's something that I can get and I know, but I wanted the octopus burger with seaweed fries. Like I wanted something daring, something that you took what was there and then you made it your own. And I didn't quite see enough of that to elevate the plate. But overall, there were a lot of things that did impress me. You told the story of the deck well. It was solid as far as that goes.
Kimberly had a very polite way of criticizing the deck. Let me try something different. Yes, this is known flavor, and we know this flavor. We've tasted it before because you just slammed a bunch of Mirrodin cards together from Mirrodin and Scars of Mirrodin.
Locally sourced ingredients.
Locally sourced from the creative department upstairs. This is plagiarism. This is the worst plagiarism that I have ever seen in Ironroot Chef in any capacity, and that includes my local amateur competitions back home with the other wizards. This, I don't know what to say. There's literally no cards outside of either Mirrodin or Scars of Mirrodin. Yeah, sure, they're all foily. Congratulations, you have a sick Moto account, MTGO account. All right, so good for you. Sorry? Ickerslick. Oh, okay, all right. Those are times where, okay. Yeah, no, not enough. This is blatant plagiarism. For me, this was a big fat failure, so sorry about that, but I'm not sorry.
I was similarly unimpressed, and I was going to give it a 1, but like I said, I thought the foil thing was really clever, so fully a whole point for that. I gave the deck a 2.
I also gave the deck a 2.
Can you guess? 0! Sorry.
4 points there for the Wizards team. So we have one last dish on the menu, the dessert from the Community Cup team. Maria, the floor is yours.
All right, you guys. Yeah! All right. So in the spirit, of this Ironroot Chef Challenge, and in the spirit that you, the very handsome and beautiful judges, have requested a 3-course meal, we have decided to give you more than just the 3rd course. We have decided to give you a whole nother meal, complete with its own 3 courses built in. The name of this deck is A Tribute to Hunger, which is a card we have in it. Our Ironroot ingredient is Hungry Spriggan. He is, in fact, he who hungers, right? The 2 courses of Standard and Commander were not enough for Hungry Spriggan. You might even say he has an urge to feed, or a wild hunger, perhaps a savage hunger, or maybe a demonic appetite. He be hangry. Okay. But not to worry for our little Hungry Spriggan, because it is time to feed. It is his right of consumption. So, the embodiment of his hunger is realized in the top end of our curve in Vorn Kleck's Voice of Hunger. For his epic meal, Hungry Spriggan demands 3 courses. The first, of course, is a light salad course with a lot of sprouts. Sprouts, only a swarm of sprouts will do. For the main course, perhaps fresh meat is what you desire. For his hunger is truly an unholy hunger. For dessert, Hungry Spriggan chooses the heart-healthy option of fruit of the first tree. But he's not eating alone. He invited his other hungry friends, Polukranos World Eater and Eater of Days, who we saw in the match, who gorges so much that when you cast him, he skips 2 turns because he's in a food coma. So where does this food come from, you may ask? Why, his rot farm, of course, and his temple garden and Kalini garden, and don't forget our one of Mouth of Rona. But what will Hungry Spriggan use to eat his meal? Not to worry, we've provided him with a butcher's cleaver, and of course something to eat off of, a dark steel plate.
Those chips sounded very dry. That was really entertaining. Well, we asked for something we'd never seen before, out of nowhere with Hungry Spriggan, of all things. I'm pretty high on this deck. Spoiler, I'm not gonna lie. Basically, my only possible complaint is you got your dark steel plate, you got your butcher's cleaver. There's no fork. Can you tell me something? Yes. What's up? Wait, here.
We almost included fork bolt.
Uncastable in that deck also, yeah. All right, Kimberly.
Thank you. This deck delighted me. It was cute. It was very flavorful. And it approached the whole contest in a different way. And I was I was very happy that you decided to be daring and go this route. I thought that was a really cool risk to take, and I think it paid off for you. The only criticism that I would have is that you obviously were going for a different type of flavor, and you were telling this story without carrying too much of the link, like, you know, Liliana being on Unholy Hunger, there's not really a link to our hungry Spriggan there, but I appreciate what you were doing, and a dessert that's a little lighter, that's fine with me. We had heavy main course, right? So this was fantastic, guys. Thank you.
Yes. So again, Kimberly just noted that you went all in on card names, right? So, right, Liliana is the artwork on Unholy Hunger. So you kind of honed in on one aspect of the cards. You could see that as a weakness or a strength. I see it as a strength. I see it as boldness to the nth degree. You gave yourself a rule. Every single card name sounds like it's part of a meal, and this hungry Spriggan is devouring every other card in the deck and using the other utensils in the deck to consume those things. Yes, so this is not something that can be keyword searched in Gatherer. You know, you had to come up with your own diverse lexicon. Clearly a lot of thought went into it, a lot of creativity. So it wasn't just, you know, keyword search for, I don't know, Spriggans, although there'd probably only be like 2 or 3 of those, if that. Yeah, a huge hit for me. Very well done.
Yeah, I loved it. I gave it a 5.
I also gave it a 5.
I gave it a 5. Congratulations. 15.
The perfect end to our meal there, a perfect score from the community in their dessert. We will get the fresh scores to you. I believe that we're just totting them up at the moment, but stay tuned because very, very soon we have our last format here at the Community Cup, that being one final Battle for Zendikar draft. Stay tuned.
And hello there. Welcome back to the booth here at the Magic Online Community Cup. So, BDM.
Didn't go quite as I expected.
Did you predict those scores?
I didn't predict the Commander score. I did not think the community team was going to do as well on Commander, and I thought that the Wizards team would do a little better on Commander. And I felt, you know, maybe there was a little, well, I'm not sure that the same reasons that the Wizards team got dinged in Commander, maybe they shouldn't have got dinged for in
I
dessert,
had a few of
but
those
that's
feelings too, yeah.
But I will say this, and I tweeted this already, I think Jimmy Wong is the molecular gastronomist of this competition. He was cooking.
Is that the deconstructed?
He was using liquid nitrogen. He was using foams.
I'll tell you what, he sold it.
He was doing emulsions.
Because the thing is, you know, I listened to the Wizard, and he was like, you know, you could have just put in a bunch of time walks with your Metamai. And I looked at the list, and I saw a bunch of time walks with the Metamai. I was like, but somehow, you know, when Jimmy was giving his speech, he was crafting it into this.
He really
grand
time stretched
narrative.
his speech.
Yes, he did. But he did a good job with it too. I think he kind of sold the judges a little bit further than just looking at the list.
He sold me. I mean, I think just from looking at the list and watching it play, I was a little more like, oh, this seems like a little like, oh, a lot of time walks.
I thought it was kind of lame.
But
then it was like they went a little deeper than it looked like on the surface, and he was
Yeah.
able to convey that to the judges, and he was rewarded for it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so why don't we take a look at our scoreboards, because we're starting to get down the stretch here at the Community Cup, and this is the community team Ironroot Chef scoreboard. So from the match points, they were only able to glean 3 total. They
lost 2.
They lost 2 of their 3 matches. But on flavor points, the Appetizer got 10 out of total 15. Entree got 14. That's the one you were just talking about,
Right.
the Commander deck. And wow, the Hungry Spriggan deck, which you and I both loved.
Right.
The judges did too, and they gave it 5, 5, and 5 for a total of 39 of 45 points in the flavor points, and 3 of 9, much less important, of course, on the match points. Let's see how the Wizards team fared here.
It is not going to be as favorable.
No.
But you know what?
Jeez.
It's not that far off from where we thought it was going to be. We kind of thought this was going to be a spread on flavor points of between 25 and 35 points. And you know what? It ended up being a spread of 26 and 39. So we were within a couple points of that.
Well, they got more than 20. Oh, it was 20. It was, so
26
it was 40,
on flavor.
So it was 42 to 32 were the totals there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
39 and 3 and 26 and 6
Yeah.
here. I mean, the real painful one here though is look at that dessert.
Yeah,
Yuck. It came out melted ice cream. The cake wasn't quite cooked all the way. It was gooey, and they got 4 points from 3 judges. They could have got 15, and they got 4. They got 2-2-0.
And that was overconfidence on the Wizards team. They really thought that, they understood. They're like, well, we know the story here. We can tell you the story. And they're like, well, we told you the story.
Right. Yeah. The interesting thing I thought with that last one, and of course that was the Phyrexia storyline thing, was I thought they actually executed on their idea very well.
Right.
The problem is the judges didn't like the idea. They said, that's not
Correct.
your idea. We've heard that idea.
Yeah.
And even if you did a grand job, going into the nooks and crannies, they had some cool stuff with the foil for the slicked cards. And also they took, it ate the whole sideboard. Like that was really ingenious stuff, but they just didn't like the premise.
We talked about that. The danger also of going on established ground, right? Like when you were choosing the commander, one of the reasons I had thought Ramirez was a much better bet.
Because nobody plays
because
that
nobody
guy's
and no one
commander.
knows this. Like, there's not like a huge article on Uncharted Realms going into the history of
pretty
this.
sure Jimmy hasn't done an episode of Command Zone about the Ramirez deck. I wouldn't be 100%. They go pretty deep, but it's unlikely.
But
So
by the way, there is a Ramirez DiPietro commander deck in the room.
that wasn't the one that was just
wasn't the
built?
one. Yeah, that someone.
Who?
Cam.
Cam
has an all commons.
Of course. Cameron Lauder we're talking about from Loading Ready Run. You'll know him from Friday nights. He's here doing tech work for us, and that's amazing. Let's look at our final scores as we move in. This is sort of the big reveal here. Okay.
Wow.
We've got a close one. Wizards of the Coast is still in the lead, riding the wave from the Battle for Zendikar sealed event, but 2 points separates them from the community team. I want to remind